Hello, comrades, and welcome back to the Ushanka Show. Today we're going to talk about medical service in Soviet Union and the things I remember from my time living in Kiev, Ukraine. First of all, you probably know by now that medical service in the USSR was free. Well, I hate to say it was free. It was paid by government. It was nothing ever free because doctors didn't work for free. They got paid. They didn't get paid much, but they still got paid. So government covered all the medical expenses. And, looking at the big picture, it's hard to tell anything bad about service that you got for free. As you say, you get what you pay for. Or as we say there's a Russian proverb, дареному коню в зубы не смотрят. You don't inspect the horse's teeth if you got it for free. But to give you a general idea, we had several kind of these sarcastic jokes about medical service, and one of them was that saying that we лечимся даром, даром лечимся, which you can translate as our medical free care is carefree. Our medical free care is carefree. And another one is when a patient comes in, a person comes in the doctor's office and he's asking, "Hello, are you my free doctor?" And the doctor answers, "Yes, are you my terminal patient?" So as you see, the Soviet people were quite sarcastic about their medical services that they received in Soviet Union. My first experience with the Soviet medical system started, of course, during my birth in July of 1971. Of course, I don't remember much about those days. Actually, I don't remember anything. But my parents didn't have to pay anything. My mother stayed for about a week after giving birth. But, of course, they didn't have a, separate personal room. As my wife here in Michigan, when she gave birth to my kids, it cost me about $2,000 for, services, but we had a separate room, had TV, had adjustable bed, has a nurse on hand all the time. Over there, my mom shared the room with about another at least 10 women, and everything was very basic. Later on, when I was probably about 3 months old, my mother took me to the village where my father is from, so to show to in-laws their new grandson. And there, so that was probably about October or November, so it was pretty cold weather. And I had a problem. The pacifiers that my mom gave me, I was sucking really hard, the pacifiers, and she was afraid I can, damage it and swallow the piece of it. And she wasn't sure what to do about it. So my grandma, for whatever reason, gave her a great idea to cut the tip of the pacifier, so then I won't be sucking it that hard because air will be going right through. And what happened, I was sucking the very cold air, and I caught really bad pneumonia, so both sides. And that's how I ended up in a local hospital, and Mom said I was doing really bad, and they were afraid that I'm gonna die. And since then, for quite a few years, I had pretty weak lungs. I was almost every winter had some kind of bronchitis. And I remember my mom saying that the food was really bad in that hospital, which, they cooked everything right there. It was nothing like a Cisco deliveries when they bring you frozen meals and you just heat them up and give to patients. They had to cook from scratch, and since there was shortage of almost everything, I'm quite sure that people in the hospital kitchen they were stealing like butter, meat, and everything else. So they were putting less stuff while cooking, so everything was watery and not tasting good because they didn't put everything they're supposed to in while preparing meals. Next time I got in the hospital in Kiev when I was approximately 5 years old. I was limping since I was a kid, and we couldn't figure out what was going on. Well, now I know, well, later we found out I have a really mild case of cerebral paralysis, like really, really mild case, but my left side is more developed than my right side. This is why I'm lefty. So like my left arm is stronger and I can do things with it more effective with my right hand. And also my legs and my arms are different lengths. So my left leg is a little bit longer than my right leg, and same with my arms. So this is the reason I'm still limping, but I guess I was limping more when I was a kid. And my mother noticed that I never stepped on my right heel. So it was a kind of running around in circles trying to figure out what's going on, what to do to fix my issue with limping. And one of the doctors suggested to get a different height shoes. And when my mom went to the shoemaker, he actually started asking questions. Why do you want to have a shoe of a different height? And then he said he refused to do it. He said it's going to destroy your son's back, going to throw him out of whack. So she didn't do it. So in the end, she managed to find a good doctor, and he recommended to do, they call it achilloplastics, achilloplastica. So they tried to extend my Achilles thing, whatever it's called, on my right foot. So actually, they perform a surgery on my leg. So, they put me kind of like that asleep. And then I had a cast on my leg, and I stayed in the hospital for about a week. Of course, still no charge. And the room had about 10 kids in it. And of course, parents came to visit, and they had to bring food for the same reason that meals in the hospital were pretty pathetic. We didn't pay, as I said, anything, but they asked politely my father to donate blood. So he did. And later I found out that they drained so much blood over him, so he barely made it home. He was passing out on the bus riding home. So that was my second time I was in hospital in Ukraine. A couple of years later, I had an accident in the winter. We were playing snowball fights outside, of course, and so I got my hands like really cold. So I went inside of the building that we lived at that time. That's still that building that we had a little one-room apartment, and they had a hot water batteries, for heating in the hallways. So I was leaning against that battery with my hands, trying to warm them up, and kind of was on a little angle, and my leg suddenly slipped. So I fell and I hit my chin right on the top of that battery, and it was a really pretty sharp edge. So I sliced my chin pretty bad, and blood was gushing. I ran back to my apartment crying and screaming, knocked the door, and my parents were trying to take care of me, but they realized that the cut was pretty ugly. So they took a taxi and they drove me to the hospital, and that's where I got stitches. The only thing about that experience, doctor was drunk. I remember my parents complaining about it. It was sometime around holiday, it was like late evening. I guess they didn't expect being busy, so he said, yeah, he did pretty decent job for being drunk, but still you could see a little scar on my chin. And all this BS, my kids telling them that it was a night fight and I barely managed to save my neck from slicing. That's all I got, sliced my chin. I was about 9 years old when I again got in the hospital. Again, it was winter. We were playing ice hockey a lot, and of course we didn't have skates, so we just were running around. And I was constantly falling on my left knee, and in the end it swollen really bad. So my mom took me to the doctor. Doctor recommended to go to the hospital. So we're doing different procedures there, heating, and give me some drugs to make that swelling come down. So I spent also about 5 or 6 days in the hospital that time. Again, big room, a lot of kids in it. no TV. Nurses come once in a great while to check on you. Doctor comes once a day to check on your progress. Otherwise, you on your own, just hanging out with other kids, playing dominoes and stuff like that. And later, when I was about 18 years old, after I finished high school, I had my eyesight was getting worse and worse. I'm quite a short-sighted person. So doctor suggested to have a surgery in my eyes. So it's kind of similar to LASIK, but it's done in 2 stages. First, they insert inside of the eyes this little, I'm not sure how to call it, little thin items that kind of stop the bottom of your eye to move away. That's how it gets out of focus. And then second stage, they make the little slices, they slice your eye, made little micro scars, just like laser, and it makes your eye shrink, and then kind of your eye comes back into focus. So I had that surgery done when I was 18, again, free of charge, but it was just done, they just give me a shots around my eye so I don't feel the pain, but I was awake, I was horrified. I think I was puking after that surgery, and I was so scared about going for the second. They did one eye at once, then I had to come back 2 weeks later, get the second eye done. Then I just said, I heard bad stories about people's eyes explode if somebody, hits you in the eye by accident. So I said, forget it. I don't want to do it. And that was the last time I was in the hospital in Soviet Union when I was about 18 years old. And it was kind of a small interesting detail about that experience with that surgery. My doctor was a quite young and very, very attractive lady. And as I said, after she did my first eye, just that I was so, I guess, scared during the surgery. So I definitely didn't feel good. I couldn't eat. I was puking. And so I was just laying in the hospital in the bed. And she came to check on me. And, I was just like, I want to die. I was horrified. My eye was covered. And just, that stress, I guess, was killing me. So she sat on my bed, kind of really close to me so I could feel her leg. And, so I'm 18, like a horny teenager. She started talking to me, kind of caressing my arm. Yeah, so anyways, next thing I knew, I was kind of all bothered, and I totally forgot about my bed. I got all horny, and nothing happened between us, but just that little female touch, she kind of brought me from the desperate, I want to die kid and a teenager, and then I was normal. And second surgery on my other eye went well, and everything was good. If you watch my previous videos about coins in the Soviet Union, I already mentioned that when you call payphone, the cost was 2 kopecks, but you could dial 3 numbers free of charge. If you dial 01, it's you call for the firefighters. If you dial 02, you call for police, which we call militia. And if you dial 03, you call for the Skoraya Pomosh, so you call for ambulance. And Skoraya Pomosh is you can translate as a speedy help. So those are the calls you could do if something happens. Then they come to your building, and doctor and nurses, and they'll check on you. And if you're in serious problems, then they'll take you to the hospital. And actually, one friend of mine used to work at the ambulance in Kiev and had a lot of good stories. Fortunately, none of my family had to use that service. But yes, if you dial 03 on a payphone or your home phone, that's how you reach the ambulance help in Soviet Union. Another interesting detail, which is different from my experience here in America versus Soviet Union, I had all my teeth removed by dentist. So I was very surprised, here in America, people don't do that. They just wait till the tooth gets totally loose and it comes off by itself, or, kid pulls it out. At least my mother and my family, anytime, when I had milk teeth, we call them milk teeth. I think here in America they call it baby teeth. So when the kid has, for his first set of teeth, baby teeth, when it becomes loose, that's, I tell my mom, hey, mom, this tooth become loose. She's like, all right, we're going to take you to the dentist. So then she will go to a local hospital, больница, which is like more, not like a hospital, but when they give you service, you don't stay there overnight. And she'll make an appointment, and then we go to the dentist, and he put me in a chair and he yanked my tooth out. So every single, my tooth was actually removed professionally by a dentist. Was never any single tooth of mine that I pulled by myself. And I believe my last milk tooth, the ones that were kind of in the back and had long roots, that one wasn't moving. It was solid tooth, and I don't think it was even any problems with it. But my mom was like, well, it's still a milk tooth, baby tooth, it needs to come out. So we did the x-ray, and it showed that there's a new tooth sitting under it. It just has no chance. So she told me, okay, you have an appointment. So I went up to school to the dentist office, and that was the worst experience I ever had about pulling teeth, because a dentist, he took his those shiny pliers, and he tried to pull the tooth out, and he said, geez, this needs a bigger tool. Sit right here. So I'm sitting in this chair watching him, and he went to the back room, and he comes back with this huge shiny pliers, like big ones. And just seeing them just made me so scared, and he just, grabbed my tooth with those big pliers and just ripped that tooth out. It has a big roots. Oh my God, there was so much blood gushing out of that hole, but still no charge. And I had to have some dental work done to my teeth, like regular fillings. And usually it was a 2-stage, so you come first time, and they will drill there, and then they put some poison, mышьяк, and that same poison that we used to in Soviet Union to kill mice. And I'm not sure, I'm sorry I didn't do my homework, I didn't prepare with translations, but they'll put a temporary fill-in to keep that poison inside, and you come back like the next day, they remove it, wash it, and then they put the complete filler. So I remember that was kind of bizarre, walking around knowing there's a rat poison in your tooth sitting there. And of course, since free, everything was for free, and the doctors weren't paid much, some people will do a good job regardless if they paid good money or not. Some people just, this is how I get paid, this is how I work. So with time, local people will know which doctor to avoid, which dentist to avoid. So there'll be cases when, we have 2 dentists working at the same time, and there'll be a line of people trying to get to this dentist, and no one wants to go to that other dentist because they know he does lousy job and his filling's gonna fall out really soon, stuff like that. And other interesting details, that's kind of silly memories, but when you have to do like samples, urine samples, and for some reason we did also your poop sample. When I was a kid, I remember doing it, and they check, I guess, for worms and stuff. You do it at home. You didn't do samples at the hospital. You actually, like for poop, I'm sorry, but I have to tell you this. We used our matchboxes. So in Soviet Union, price was 1 kopek. I already talked about that in my previous video. You have an empty matchbox, and like on this picture, and that's where you put a chunk of dookie, and then you take it to the hospital. And usually for the urine sample, people would use mayo jar from the Mayo. That was the smallest jar. I think it was 100 grams maybe, or 200 grams. It's a small jar, small glass jar. So you just pee half of it at home. Your mom sealed it the best she can with like a rubber cap, and then you take that next morning to a doctor, or you do it same morning, carry it. So that was kind of strange. They didn't have any specific, equipment in the hospital to take your sample. You just do it at home and bring those matchboxes with poop and glass jars with urine right to the hospital for the sample. Okay, so this is our first video about the medical service in Soviet Union. I have some more things to talk to you guys about, what I remember. It's about things that people did trying to get better themselves without help of doctors, about medical books. And I'm going to show you, I have my medical books that I brought from Ukraine. And that's the book that has all your records from day one when you were born. I still have it, so I'm excited to show you as a separate video. Hello, comrades, and welcome back to Ushanka Show. Today we're going to continue our conversation about medical service in Soviet Union, and more exactly in Kiev, Ukraine, because that's where I lived for over 20 years. As I mentioned in my previous video, I went to Polyclinic quite often when I was a kid to take care at least of my teeth. And so we had several types of medical facilities. We had hospitals. It's where you stay. You know, they have beds, they have surgery rooms and all that stuff. So that's a hospital, госпиталь, or we call it больница. We also had so-called polyclinici, polyclinica, or polyclinics, so like a clinic, but it's a polyclinic, so there's many doctors of different specialities in the same building, so there'll be maybe 2-3 story high building that have doctors covering, you know, there'll be dentists there and people who take care of your ears and oculist, the eye doctor and other types. So the one building will be an area that you just go there and then you sit in line waiting for your turn to be checked by a doctor. And that's the thing about my memories of the Soviet polyclinics. We always had to wait in line for hours. So as I mentioned before, nothing is free in this world. So if you got a medical service which is free of charge, you pay with something else, and we paid in time. You know, I probably spent several years of my life just sitting in line, waiting for my turn to see a doctor. And most of the visits were scheduled, so first you need to go to Polyclinic and talk to a receptionist lady and schedule your appointment. And then you need to show up maybe like 30 minutes prior. And of course, you know, even if they schedule, for example, 10 people for that specific doctor in a day, there's always, might take longer, or sometimes somebody came that had an urgency, so they let them go ahead of the line. So we end up sitting at least hour or so, just to see your doctor. And for example, every time that I go to see a dentist, if you need a fill-in, then you need to have appointment and wait in line. But if you just need to pull your tooth out, then it's called that you arrive по скорой, just like a speed service. So they'll let you just go ahead of the other people. So you wait. So the dentist will finish filling someone's tooth. Then they will let you go in. He quickly yank your tooth out, and you're done. And the next person that sits for an hour to get his fill-in. So that's what I remember. We come in to the dentist, and there'll be a line of people. We tell them, hey, we по скорой. We just, for this fast service, get your tooth pulled out, and you leave. So back when I was a very small kid, and I was back in the village, I had experience in really strange medical treatment. I can't really call it a medical treatment. We had, or probably we still have, old ladies that being called sheptunya, or whisperer. And those ladies, apparently, they know special prayers that they will whisper in the person's ear, and that specific prayer, they have a specific prayers for specific problems. So they whisper that prayer in your ear, and it should take care of your problem. And I know it sounds ridiculous, but let me tell you the story what happened to me. So I was maybe 4 or 5 years old, because I remember this. I don't remember exactly what happened, but my mom said that some dog like really startled me. And there is this thing they call that if you get startled really bad, you get Ispug. So you got this scare. And what happened to me that I couldn't eat. Every time I eat, I will puke. And it lasted for several days that every meal I eat, I would just had to puke it out. And my grandma figured out that probably I have so-called scare, Ispug. And of course there is no pills against scare. But we had this old lady living in our village that she won't take the money, but you bring her little presents, like you bring some dozen of eggs or some meat or whatever you have. So my grandma took it to her, and it's funny that I still remember this. So this old log cabin, like most people had in the village, and so she talked to this lady, my grandma did, and gave her the presents. And then the grandma stayed outside, and the lady took me inside of her house, sat me on a chair, and then she started whispering something in my ear. After she was done, I would come out and I look at my grandma. I said, Grandma, I'm very, very hungry. And from that day, I didn't have issues with eating. I didn't have any eating disorders anymore. I could eat. I became a healthy kid again. So I'm not a really superstitious person, but I definitely had that experience, and it makes me wonder what the hell was going on. But this is what happened. The lady, the whisperer, healed me from scare, and when I was a little kid. And there were other things that the whisperer ladies could take care of. For example, we had so-called glass. So if somebody really envy about your achievements or just general about you, some people have this bad energy that there's glazit, we call it. So you get like a bad eye on you, and then your things will be bad, or you have a bad health issues, or just something will be wrong with you all the time, usually with your health. And you need to go to this whisperer lady, and she can kind of feel it, what's wrong with you, and she will have a special prayer to take care of it. So I'm not sure how those things work, but as I said, I had a scare and it took care of me. So that was one of the strange healing experiences that I had when I was a kid back in the Soviet Union. Okay, now I have another story for you, but I want to warn you right away. If you're eating right now, you might want to stop, or if you have a sensitive stomach, you might want to just skip this video, because for the next couple of minutes I have another good story for you guys. So I was probably about 6 or 7 years old. This thing happened in Kiev. I had issues with my tonsils. In Russian we call it glandy. And they swollen, they were really bad, they're hurting, and they were like big in size, kind of blocking my throat. And usually you just go for the quick surgery and they just snap them out and remove them. My mom wasn't really a big fan of that idea. She thought that it affects, especially young boys, if you remove early the tonsils, it can affect them as as they grow up. So when she went to the doctor, and doctor is just like, yeah, they need to be removed. My mom expressed her concerns about these removal things, and this doctor, this lady, she said something really interesting. She actually told my mother, like, you never heard this from me. I just want to mention that one of my patients, some lady told me that there's one more option, another option to take care of the bad tonsils, is to make your kid drink his own urine. And she said, I know it sounds gross and sounds weird, but I was told that it can help. So if you really, really don't want your kid to have tonsils removed, you can give it a try. And if it doesn't work, then we just schedule you for surgery. So my mom, she tricked me. one day she told me that I need to have some samples done from my urine, and in my previous video I already mentioned that we used, mayonnaise jars. So she collected my piss one day, and a day or so later she made me drink it, telling me that she got new medicine, and so she warmed it up and she made me drink it, and I thought it was disgusting testing medicine, but she made it drink a couple times that day, and guess what? My tonsils healed. They swollen disappeared, irritation disappeared, and I never had them removed. So this is another strange experience I had when I was a kid about healing. So how's everyone is doing? I hope you guys have strong stomachs and you deal okay with my video today. I apologize, but I decided, you know what? I'm just gonna tell you that story, but I think it's pretty amazing. Another thing about the medical service in Soviet Union, we did a lot of so-called samolечение, or like self-healing, that doctors didn't prescribe a lot of antibiotics when I was a kid. There was only one time that I recall I had a really bad bronchitis, and it was like going to become a pneumonia, like develop from bronchitis into pneumonia. So then they subscribed antibiotics, and I don't think we had it in a pill form. It was only shots. So I had a nurse come into our apartment every day, and she will give me a shot and use in your buttocks. And it was maybe like for a week or so. Maybe she came twice a day. Because I remember she was asking me, like, do you remember which side did I give you a shot before? And I was just so in pain from this constant needle poking in my butt, so I was like almost crying. I was like, I don't know, both sides are hurt so bad. You, ma'am, please just poke any side right now, because I really don't care. So this is when I will remember being treated with antibiotics. Otherwise, if you have a cold, you have a cough, or your nose is stuffy, people a lot of times just did it like natural remedies. We drink a lot of teas. So if you have a cold, you don't use sugar, you use honey, but thinking about it, still sugar. Like we do a lot of, you make a tea with raspberry jelly, like homemade raspberry jelly. You just heat up water really hot, add some raspberries jelly in it, mix it up, and then some honey, and you drink it really hot. You're supposed to drink it really, really hot. Another good tea would be like made out of cranberries. It's really sour, really tart tea. Another popular berries was blackcurrant berry. That was also really good, but of course you have to drink it really hot. And that's one of the disappointing thing that I discovered here in America, that in America you don't really have a blackcurrant. It's a different story, but since early 30s of last century, all the blackcurrant was destroyed in America because there was some blight affecting white pines in northern states, and blackcurrant bushes were outlawed. The other things that people used to take care of their cold was this really horrible things called горчичник, mustard plasters. So you could purchase in any drugstore, apteka we call it. It's the pieces of paper which they had a mustard seed paste applied, and you buy them a package of 10, I believe. And actually I have one I bought from Ukraine. Now it's made in China, of course. But if I don't find it, what I'm planning to do, I'm gonna actually make a video and apply it on myself, and we will see how it looks. But if I have a really bad cold, that's what Mom will do. She will have a small plastic, like flat container full of hot water, and then you take your t-shirt off, and so you lay on your stomach, and she will dip each the piece of paper with mustard paste on it in this water, and it activates the mustard paste. Then she applies it to your skin. So you will have on your back maybe 6 of them. And then she'll put like a wax paper on top, so you won't get your sheets wet, and maybe a towel. Then she gently turns you turns you around, so now you lay on your back, applying your weight on the mustard, those pieces of paper. Then she applies on your chest, same thing. And guys, I'm telling you, this is one of the most horrible tortures you can experience, is this burn from the mustard paste on your skin. And usually you have to keep them on you for about 30 minutes. So my mom will start the timer or keep an eye on the watch. And I was begging her to read a book for me, because, you just lay in your room and it's really like your chest and your back is on fire. It burns so bad, you're almost ready to cry. And I honestly have no idea why it worked, but it would help you with your cough to have this mustard paste burn your skin. And then after 30 minutes, my mom says, okay, you're fine now. She will remove those pieces of paper, and your skin will have the shape of this mustard plasters for a day or so. It's kind of like brings the skin up to the upper layer. So you have it looks like little burns, but it will help with your cough. So as I said, we didn't use a lot of antibiotics, but all my childhood, every winter, I remember suffering, because at least I'll get, bad cough maybe once or twice during the winter, and that means that my mom will apply these mustard plasters, this garchichniki, and it was horrible. Another way is so-called banki, or I looked up for the proper translation, it's called cupping therapy. So these glass cups, and you apply in your back same way as you apply garchichnik, but what you do, my mom will have you need to have a flame, so you quickly put the stick with the burning, she would use like rubbing alcohol and dip like a fabric or something that lights on fire, and you apply that flames inside of the cup, and it burns the oxygen out of it. Then you quickly apply on the skin, so at that moment you have vacuum inside of the cup, and you apply it onto your back. And what happens then, since there's a vacuum inside of the cup, it starts sucking your skin, stretching skin, and suck inside of the cup. So it looks really weird when you look at the person. I've never seen anyone else with the cups on their backs, but the good thing was it wasn't hurting at all. They just sit on your back, and then that's kind of similar effect as a garchichnik. It brings the blood to the upper layers of your skin, and actually after the cups being removed, you have like perfect round shape, like cookie cutter shape bruises on your skin. It's a little bit dark red spots right where the cups were, so your back will look really ugly for several days or a week. But supposedly it also helped with your cough. When I started looking up on the internet, it was a lot of things were saying like, no, it actually doesn't. But we used it a lot when I was a kid, but my mom preferred, unfortunately, garchichnik, those mustard paste sheets, and they were really painful. Glass cups, this cupping therapy was way easier, but maybe my mom decided it wasn't as effective as the garchichnik, so I was always suffering under garchichniki. Another thing I did a lot when I had really bad runny nose or stuffy nose I'll go in the kitchen, and my mom set up little like a thing on the fire. We had a gas stove, so she'll put little bowl, like not a bowl, like a metal thing full of water, and then she adds salt and baking soda to it, and then she covers it up so there's a little hole that steam will be coming out when the water starts boiling. And then you sit there, you cover your head with a towel, so you're trying to kind of catch all that steam, and you sit for 30 minutes, and you breathe through the nose that steam with baking soda and salt, and it will help, like it warms you up your face a lot, and you sweaty and you red, but it will make you feel better, like it will kind of makes you can breathe through your nose again. But of course, again, you're in this little steamy like room under a towel for 30 minutes, breathing hot steam. So of course, it was quite painful experience too. Another thing I did a lot when I had a cold, this is when you have a bad throat, when your throat hurts, it's the same thing. You have a really hot water, and you add salt and baking soda, and you gargle it. And you gargle it as long as you could, so trying for at least 20 seconds, and it's also will kind of soothe your throat. But of course, it's really hard. Let me try it. Like that, you'll be doing it for, 20 seconds till you're out of breath. And of course, it's also, you need to have water as hot as you can handle it. And it's really salty, plus baking soda, so it tastes really bad. But that was another way how we took care of our colds instead of just using antibiotics like here in America. And one more thing that we did, when you have stuffy nose, they can't breathe through it. A lot of people back home, they had aloe plant. I hope I said it correctly. It's ALOE plant. So we actually had plants in your house. And what you do, you just cut one of those funky cactus-looking leaves, and you squeeze this juice out of it. Now that juice, then you need to have them apply the aloe drops right in your nose. And for some reason, it irritates it so much, it will make you sneeze nonstop, maybe for 10, 15 minutes. You stay in the bathroom, and you'll be sneezing and sneezing and sneezing so hard. And of course, all the stuff will be coming out of your nose and your mouth, so you want to stay in the bathroom right there next to the sink. Sometimes you can get headache just because you sneeze so much, but it also would help you with your nose condition. Of course, I hate it a lot because I'll always get a headache. Because if you sneeze nonstop for 10, 15 minutes, it start hurting. That was another thing we did a lot, is aloe juice applied right inside of your nose. Just kind of have so-called pipietka. I'm not sure how we say it in English, but this little glass vial with the little rubbery tip that you create a little vacuum, you suck inside, and then you do some drops inside of your nose. So that's the things that the Soviet people did to take care of their colds. I hope you enjoyed this story. It just brought a bunch of memories to me. Now I'm not a big fan how everything is just antibiotics here in America. As long when the kids start coughing or whatever, it has a cold, you go to a doctor, and I was like, I'm just wasting my time and my money, because I know all they're gonna do is just say, okay, there's your receipt, go get some amoxicillin, and that's it. That I had only once in my 20 years here in America when a doctor said, well, it's not bad yet, so you can try some natural remedies, but just in case, I'll write you a prescription. We say in Russian, recept. So I'll write you a prescription for antibiotics, but you're still not that bad that you might be able to skip it. And I really appreciated that, because otherwise, 99% of the time, doctor was just, oh yeah, you have a bad cough, there's a prescription, go get some antibiotics. It's like, oh my God, why is it always antibiotics? Can we just have some better ways of healing ourselves without applying these antibiotics every single time? So this is my story about medical services in Soviet Union and how the Soviet people took care of themselves. I hope you enjoy the show. Hello, comrades, and welcome back to the Ushanka Show. Today it's video number 3, stories about medical service in Soviet Union, and I decided to show you this book. This is a so-called medical book, a медицинская книжка. This is pretty much the collection of all the records of me since I was a kid, since I was born in 1971, and every person who was going to the doctors, they had such a medical book, медицинская книжка, and so I just want to show you how it looked like. So of course it was stored at your local Polyclinica. Of course, 70s, 80s, there were no computers available. So this is how doctors kept the record of the patient. So every person had such a book, and it was stored at Polyclinic. And then if you want to come and see a doctor, you go to receptionist and you ask for appointment. And they will give you so-called talon. So there'll be a piece of paper with the name of a doctor and a date of appointment and time. So this is talonchik that you bring with you, then you get in line and you wait for your turn to see a doctor. While I believe there will be nurses or somebody who is working at the Polyclinic, they'll take those books and bring to doctors in advance, so they know, for example, a doctor gonna see about 10 people. So these 10 people, their medical books will be on the desk at the doctor's office who are gonna see you. So for example, this page, this is the list of all my shots. So starting, there's 1972, polio, and all kinds of. So that's at least all the shots I got since I was a kid. So this is of course a good reference for a doctor to see if I had all the shots that I need. See, it's old papers, yellowish. Also right here, this is my weight. So when I was born, I was 4 kilos, so I was a pretty big kid. And my dimensions when I was born. Then every time that you was in a hospital for whatever reason, there'll be so-called Sprovka. So this is official paper. This is the stamp. So it's a city hospital, specialized children hospital number 14, so-called Ahmadiet. And that's where I stayed in 1977. So I was 7 years old. And this is what I was already mentioning you. I had a surgery on my right foot, a hiloplastica. They extended my Achilles, and that's what I told you. Of course, it's always for free, but my dad had to donate some blood, and I stayed there from February 24th till March 17 in 1977. So this is a document that you see every single record of my medical history. There's another similar Sprovka from the same hospital, Children's City Specialized Clinic, Hospital number 14, my name. So in 1982, when I was 11, I stayed there for 3 days. In March, so I said, I was playing ice hockey a lot, and I had my right knee had a really bad swollen. So I stayed there and had treatment for 3 days. Then they sent me home, and the doctor recommended to continue treatment locally at the Polyclinic. Signatures, all the good stuff. And then in the back it says recommendation. Строгий постельный режим, so I should stay in the bed for some time. I can see it. This is the most historical document. This is July 1971. This is a Sprovka again, but you see it's official paper, but it's all handwritten. That's issued to my mother, that she gave her birth to a kid on July 14, 1971. It's a boy. 4,000 grams, so 4 kilos, 53 centimeters, so I was a big baby. Then they tell you the size of my head was 38 centimeters, without any complications. Even said something about that my belly button was taken care of too. So this is hospital number 8. So this is the paper of my birth. It's really cool. So as I said, this is what every person kept, and this is how they tracked you. And I just recalled that we also had so-called участковый врач. So there will be a doctor who will be covering specific area in city, for example. You know, maybe he covers, I don't know, 10 buildings or so many people, and her job will be half of the day she'll stay in the office and you know, patient come to see her. Then afternoon she'll walk around and she visit the people that can't see her, they're too sick or something else, so then she will visit them locally. So there's another one from let's see, this is from 1986. Epicris, so something was, they checked me out. So you see all this it's kind of interesting. If the handwriting is neat, you can read it pretty good. So different things. So this is how all the records were kept back then. Oh, I messed it up, man. And I said, it's just sometimes the handwriting is so poor that it's hard to recognize what they're talking about. And this is a standard form. It says like, this is what is the patient complaint, so жалобы больного. So that this is doctor fills in, and like, was he visited at home? And here it's like, was there any kind of recommendation about not going to work? But this doctor was just writing all across, and I said, trying to figure out what this is all about. Kind of lost the habit of reading the Russian cursive, but so this is just on and on and on. Different things about my life. So all my life, like hospital-wise, is here. Okay, so there's another one. This is dated 1988. Now, so there's they checked my eyes and they write all the things, like, see, it's all by hand, really primitive. So I have a short-sighted, I'm very short-sighted on both eyes. I think this is about my surgery in my eyes that I had. So this is that lady that did the surgery to me. Medgaradok, it's, yep. So let's just go on and on and on, all these things. Every time I visit a doctor, you see here it's supposed to be a date, so this is the date of visit, and then which doctor I visited and my complaints, and a lot of Sprovkas. So this is I was a student. So, and you see, it just kind of glued in, and sometimes it's not exactly by the dates, because it's actually, you see, we started from 1971. This is a bunch of 1989s, but this is yep. And a lot of things here was never got filled. It's kind of stopped in 1991. Let's see, we'll flip some more. But yeah, so this is a standard book, and this is in Russian, not in Ukrainian. So this is a standard book for the whole Soviet Union, that they probably were printing them by millions, and then and this is probably like way original one before that was. So there's several books put together, and in the end here we got some more. Okay, so this is when I got, it's already 19 where is the dates? I don't have a date, but when I started working, so I'm already adult, so I got so I can work on high energy lines way up high, so it's like check that I'm not crazy. I can handle heights, and so this is job approval, so I can be I'm okay to work at my job. So we had those there too. Oh, this whole thing just came up. And then there's a couple standard forms about analysis. So this is a general blood analysis. This one was done 1991 also, so that has a different, whatever things in your blood. Kind of cool. Another blood. Here you go. There's my urine sample. Again, name and different what's in there. And it's probably got constantly updated, so the old analyses were thrown away. Again, and this is what the paper will doctor write. If they want you to take a blood sample, so she just writes this little note, says, okay, you need to take a blood sample, take this piece of paper, and then I go back to receptionist, and she will assign me. So see this, all this paper is kind of glued too. So I think it's really neat, but this is what every Soviet person had for keeping their medical records, these medical books. And like this one, see, says the standard form was printed. Just trying to get some focus here. In 1985, and 4 million copies. And yep, so here you go. All the things, 1993. Okay, another blood sample. So this is 1993, so I am 22. So this is a different doctors, a neuropathologist, eye doctor, surgeon, therapist, and they checked me and write down what they found and what they recommend for me to have for treatment. And looks like so that was checking me so I can do my job, so I can work, and it says they didn't find anything that can interfere with my job. So here you go. I thought it would be kind of interesting to show you. This is a standard form. This is a standard thing for the Soviet people. This is how I gotta put it together. That's how our books looked for visiting doctors. And they said now it's probably all different. This is all circa 1970s, 1980s. Made in USSR medical book. Well, I hope you enjoyed the show. I'm sorry it's a little bit kind of messy, but I thought it was pretty neat. Oh look, this is actually when I finished high school or during. Yeah, that's right. So 1988, I'm the last year of school, so it's a 10th grade. We all had to go do medical tests for Army service. So even if you don't go to Army service, like if you're planning to go to college, and this way you can skip being drafted if you go to college, still in the 10th grade, all the boys would go and have a required medical test. So Prizivnaya комиссия, this is a draft commission. So they will check every pupil, every boy in the 10th grade, and then they'll keep the records of your health conditions, so they know what can you do if you join Army service. And because of my short-sightedness, my bad eyes, I was just like I couldn't be like really being in military service. So this is pretty neat to see the cool ink stamp of the draft commission in Kiev. 1988, so it's about 3 years before Soviet Union collapsed. Well, now for sure we're gonna finish this video. I hope you liked it, and don't forget to share on social media, share with your friends, and I appreciate you supporting your comments, and we'll talk to you soon. До свидания, goodbye.